cites Tinubu as Minister of Finance. Wale Edu says this illustrates confidence in Nigeria's reforms. So what's this all about? The country's Eurobond issuance attracted others worth $13 billion, which represents an oversubscription of 453%. This data was shared by the Debt Management Office, and experts say this is a designation of Nigeria.
The Nigerian political environment seems to come together, even though it's looking like, we are all going against the same problem. Correct me if I'm wrong, Benga. You mentioned earlier about how this was being lobbied by sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
So let's stay on the Eurobond
yes.
for a moment, because that story by the government is not the side to payments that in the Minister of someone that is competent, that is well and alive, and that is able to deliver on the job. And is, for instance, do you think about the person that you hire as a CEO? The CEO has to be someone that is competent, that is well and alive, and that is able to deliver on the job and is able to deliver results. There is no one that hires a sick CEO. And even when the hiring is done and one finds out later that the CEO is poorly and cannot continue with the job, normally you would set that person aside and hire a new person. So again, elections have consequences everywhere in the world. Actions and decisions have consequences, and that is what we are seeing in Nigeria. This story will continue to unfold, and we will be bringing you more. Let's stay with this day as we take the third story. Man declares support for 15% import tariff on petrol and diesel. And impact life up to that, and he was frustrated.
Can he walk the walk? Because clearly he has talked the talk.
I didn't think he would say it, but I know that he will keep his word for saying it. The environment has been in this industry since 2010 to the post
or led security guards in crucial times like this.
Okay, so again, I would say that I think this is an amazing time for the defense industry in Nigeria. For so many years, defense manufacturers and contractors have been prevented, or the system has sort of prevented the development of these local capabilities that we're talking about. But as an additional testament to the positive sides we're seeing, the comments made by the Chief of Defense Staff, the new Chief of Defense Staff, are an indication and a testimony in support of what I said earlier. There are concerted efforts, there are very serious efforts to change things. And from an insider, I've been in this industry since 2010. As an insider, these efforts are very, very visible. They're glaring, and I was really pleasantly taken aback to hear him say that, because I didn't think he would say it. But I know that he will keep his word for saying it. The environment is better. We're in the process of developing a lot of capacity. The current DG of DICON is extremely capable of running DICON. You know, DICON has had challenges in how it's been run since its inception. We've had some few wins, but this DG is, I mean, I'm not giving him lip service, but I've actually seen him work, and I know that before the end of 2027, Nigerians will see a lot of changes, a lot of capabilities that they'll see a lot of capability that has already been that will be capabilities that are being built, and we're going further up the curve in becoming more self-sustainable. So I think on a whole, there's a lot of positives to report.
Right. Now, looking at the conversations that we've been having today and some of the reports that we've been holding earlier, do you believe that foreign powers sometimes exploit, in this case, Nigeria, when it comes to our security challenges?
So security is big business. People need to sell things. People need to buy things. People need to source whatever they can at the most competitive prices. If we are gray in certain areas, we will be exploited, and sometimes we may not even know. But Nigeria is learning. Nigeria is learning. We're miles away from where we were a few years ago. And a lot of stakeholders are taking note of some of these narratives and doing things to see how we can reduce or completely block these incidents of exploitation.
Okay, now we look at a situation where, talking about proliferation of small and light and illicit weapons. Now, we have ECOWAS on one stand calling for the prohibition, according to Article 17 of the ECOWAS Convention, that all small arms should be prohibited. But now we have a situation across the Sahel now from the fall of the Gaddafi regime, where these arms are falling into the hands of terrorists. So now the arms are being retrieved and being demolished. And on one hand, we're having shortage of military equipment to fight this terrorism battle. What do you make of such a situation? Isn't it paradoxically?
So there's reference to what happened in Libya. There's sort of like an oversupply or access to weapon systems in the hands of non-state actors. It's a problem, and smuggling. With smuggling, people manage to get a lot of this into our country. The availability, the presence of these types of weapons in the country are a major security risk. But also, many of these weapons are old and can only be used by threat elements. The state actors have to use better quality equipment. You don't just pick a gun because it's a gun. You pick a gun for a reason. It's sort of like trying to open a bottle of Coke with a screwdriver. Screwdriver is extremely is an extremely effective tool when you apply it to unscrewing or screwing something. But when you try to use it to open a bottle of Coke, it starts to defeat the aim. So yes, these weapons can cause mass destruction, but in the hands of state actors like the police and the army and people that should use weapons the right way, many of these weapons are not suitable for the kind of work they do.
Now, Nigeria has a history of rehabilitating insurgents, and I'm curious to know what your opinion is on this.
That's a tough question.
Should I? Yes, I understand.
That's a very tough question. I don't really advocate for the elimination of threat elements if it can be avoided. People that can be used or can be reorientated to do positive things should be given a chance. These people can provide a workforce like the way maybe we've heard stories of China having people travel to countries to work as prison sentences and things like that. These people can be a part of our workforce, but people who are people who do not want to change, who are non-repentant, I think they should be dealt with by the provisions of the law.
Okay, let's streamline this discussion because Yolanda is really making a very cogent point there. Yesterday, the federal government said it has neutralized 13,500 terrorists and also arrested 17,000 terrorists. What do you make of that report? Do you think the federal government is showing enough capacity in handling this challenge, this security challenge?
I know the federal government, I won't say I think, I know the federal government is extremely concerned, and I know that they're trying their best to do it the right way. They also have capacity problems in terms of how certain things should be managed, the laws that guide them. And this is where I would like to call on international partners like the US government and all others to help us, look at these these issues? What are the best ways to handle these issues? You know, we need cooperation from our international partners. We need cooperation in terms of peacekeeping.
Sorry, let me just come in. You mentioned something very interesting now. We need cooperation from our international partners. Who do we look towards? Should we look along the line of US or that is spreading a military action, or look towards China or the BRICS or the EU? So which one best serve our national interest as Nigerians?
I don't think any country can give us everything. You know, I think various countries would provide various types of support. The US has what it can do. I mean, US partnering with us they're very good at direct action. They're very good at intelligence gathering. I mean, if they work alongside our people in the fields, you know, it will help improve capacity.
Mr. Begaba, I'm so sorry. We are so pressed for time. You're making a lot of sense, but we're also bound by our own time regulations. Otherwise, my producer would surcharge me. Thank you very much. We hope we can have you many more times to share your insightful contribution. You brought in a whole different perspective into this, and I hope the federal government and government at subnational levels are listening. And that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I'm Benga Ashiru. It's goodbye from me.
Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. I'm Yolanda Robert. Goodbye.
Tales of courage, honesty, and unity. Through stories, we learned how to live. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. New stories came from faraway lands, and slowly we lost our own. But now, a new story begins. In this 21st century, animation has become our new village square, and it's time we tell our own stories in animation.
Update on reactions to Donald Trump's denunciation of the state, both under FIFA Forward program. We'll also catch up on news making headlines across the globe. Adefemi Akinsanya will bring us updates on the foreign scene from the World Brief, and we'll also review today's newspaper headlines across the globe. Also, Anyeze Osakwe will join us live from Washington, D.C. to bring us updates on reactions to Donald Trump's denunciation of the killing of Christians in Nigeria and threats of action yet again. Aaron Akerejola will be taking us through sporting activities across the globe, while Ojope will fill us in on what's trending around the world and highlight impactful stories under milestones in our Good News Report. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The federal government has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's determination to tackle Nigeria's security challenges, saying he is more than ready to uproot the last vestiges of terrorists in the country. Addressing a World Press Conference in Abuja on Wednesday, Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris blames external forces on the United States designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, stressing that there is no exclusive terror target on Christians or indeed any other groups in the country, even as he said Nigeria welcomes international support, including from the Donald Trump's United States, to crush terrorists in the country. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye tells us more.
Worried about the anxieties in the wake of threats by the United States President Donald Trump to to launch military action in Nigeria in support of alleged genocide of Christians in the country. The Nigerian government on Wednesday moved strongly to dispel what it considers a misconception of the complex realities of events in the country's protracted security challenges. Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, dismissed the narrative that Christians are specifically being targeted.
The menace of terrorism in Nigeria does not exclusively target any religious or ethnic group. As in many parts of the world, extremism is mindless and it is blind to religion.
Relying on the report of a recent Global Terrorism Index, Idris said President Bola Tinubu is determined more than ever to confront the scourge of terrorism in Nigeria, pointing out that his recent change of service chiefs reflects Nigeria's commitment to uproot the last vestiges of terrorists in the country. According to Idris, Nigeria is winning the war as it reels out records of progress made in the last 2.5 years in different parts of the country.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is more than determined to confront and end these security challenges. Since May of 2023, when he took office, Nigeria's security agencies have neutralized more than 13,500 terrorists through sustained operations, and they have arrested over 17,000 suspects.
Striking among the statistics being reeled out here is the killing of more than 13,500 terrorists since May 2023 and the arrest of another 17,000 suspects, including two most wanted terrorist suspects, Mahmoud Usman and Abubakar Abba, and the perpetrators of the Awada attacks in Benue State, who government says are now facing trials. Even more compelling is the disclosure that the federal government has successfully intercepted 20 gun-running networks, thereby cutting off arms supplies to terrorists, with more than 124,000 insurgents surrendering to the superior powers of Nigeria's security forces. The Nigerian government, however, believes some insiders with external forces are behind the country's security challenges, even as it welcomed international support, including from the United States, to crush terrorism in the country.
In actual fact, there are some groups who are angry politically that they lost elections, and they started pushing this narrative in the US up until yesterday.
Admitting that government still needs to do more, the Nigerian government called on citizens, especially the media, to support their troops and stop providing any form of support to terrorists who it says are their common enemies. Omo Bazwai, Rise News.
Well, Nigeria's return to the international capital market defied political headwinds yesterday as its $2.35 billion Eurobond issuance attracted orders worth $13 billion, representing an oversubscription by 453% or $10.65 billion. This comes despite United States President Donald Trump's designation of the West African country as a country of particular concern over alleged widespread killings of Christians, rising religious intolerance, and his further threat of military action if the government fails to curb the violence. The strong investor appetite signals renewed global confidence in Nigeria's economic reforms trajectory and resilience amid rising geopolitical tension. In his remarks on the transaction, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu stated that, and I quote him, "We are delighted by the strong investor confidence demonstrated in our country and our reform agenda. This development reaffirms Nigeria's position as a recognized and credible participant in the global capital market," end of quote. Well, according to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, he said this successful market access demonstrates the international community's continued confidence in Nigeria's reform trajectory and our commitment to sustainable, inclusive growth. Moving on to the PDP, the crisis in the People's Democratic Party continues. The fact original acting national chairman Abdul Rahman Mohammed says the party has appealed Monday's judgment of a federal high court stopping the party's national convention. This comes as the board of trustees of the party has set up a 6-man committee to reconcile the factions ahead of the proposed convention in Ibadan.
It's been one meeting after the other as the leadership of the factional acting national chairman, Abdul Rahman Mohammed, in collaboration with the national secretary of the party, Senator Samuel Anyaun, condemns Tuesday's judgment of an Oyo State High Court that the national convention should go ahead.
Our esteemed national legal advisor, Ajibade Kamaldeen, SAM, has provided a true legal opinion on the implication of the judgment in a strict adherence to due process and our commitment to fairness. We have filed an appeal before the Court of Appeal to seek further judicial clarification and interpretation in the overall interest of our party.
Abdul Rahman said that having received the certified true copy of the earlier judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which stopped the convention, it is headed to the appeal court.
The PDP hereby suspend and cancel the proposed Ibadan National Convention pending the decision of the Court of Appeal.
Meanwhile, the National Secretary of the party, Sam Anyaun, called on INEC to dissociate itself from the Ibadan Convention and dismissed the possibility of a reconciliation.
I am a member of the Board of Trustees. If I was not invited in such a meeting, that meeting is one-sided. As we speak, we have a divided Board of Trustees. Most of those people you see today are not members of Board of Trustees. Some of them were just newly recruited. The information we got that the Wadata will be attacked. Based on that, they deploy security. And if you remember, when some of you were there, on the top, when I arrived the office to do my normal job, I was almost attacked by hoodlums under the directives and instruction of Ilya Damagu, the suspended chairman.
Meanwhile, the Board of Trustees, BOT of the PDP, says it will not align with any faction as elders move to reconcile all aggrieved groups ahead of the Ibadan Convention. At a meeting of the trustees in Abuja, the national chairman, Umar Damagum, and the BOT chairman, Senator Adolphus Wabara, welcomed the Ibadan court ruling which upheld the PDP's right to go ahead with its convention.
No ambition, no grievance, and no factional loyalty should override the collective interest of the PDP. As the conscience of the party, the BOT cannot and will not take sides.
I must confess that what Justice Akintola did in this era of judicial intimidation and moral compromise is an act of courage.
Ambassador Hassan Adamu was named chairman of the committee, with Mike Ohiadom here as secretary. The committee is expected to bring together both the Wike Anyaun-led NWC and the Damagum-led NWC to a compromise. The committee is expected to submit a report by Tuesday, November the 11th. Mary Chinda, Arise News.
All right, so this morning, Dr. Wasi is not here because tomorrow is the big day. And so we're looking forward to celebrating him at 60.
Yes.
He has a book launch tomorrow. But let's go straight into today's news stories being by. We have, of course, we still continue with Trump and Nigeria. This the threat of military intervention to, arrest or, to sack the terrorists in the communities where they're operating. And then moving on to the performance Eurobond, despite all this going on. And finally, with the PDP still very much in the news, will this convention hold? Your take on these stories?
Will this convention hold? Goodness, I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that one. But the announcement of a reconciliation committee, which will make it the third reconciliation committee that we've seen being brought together since 2023. What's different about this one is the major question. And we have an interview on on this later. So, and that's the question I want to ask, is that this is the third reconciliation committee, albeit the nomenclature may be different, but committees have been formed, but unfortunately, the party has been able to move forward. Now I'll focus my attention on issues pertaining to U.S.-Nigeria relations and all the allegations stemming. And now we're seeing an official position, official response from the federal government through the press conference that was held yesterday. And I think I want to begin by commending their efforts to be transparent, to engage, and to begin to speak to data and to numbers. However, the challenge is that the trust deficit has become so deep. Trust has been eroded between state and people so deeply that do Nigerians believe these numbers? Do Nigerians feel confident that this is the legitimate situation? Because many people would say that, well, if the security situation had improved, you wouldn't have to tell it to us. We would be able to vocalize it and validate it through our lived experience. So there's a challenge that needs to be resolved there. And when I thought about it deeply, I realized that the issue here is the issue of a social contract. What is a social contract? I, as government, will provide you with safety, with welfare, with security, with a conducive environment for you to self-actualize. You, as people, will pay taxes, you will obey the laws of the land, and so forth. Nigeria has become a case of a broken social contract, which is that because the people feel that the government is not doing its part, that they feel that, what is the point? What's the purpose of this? The government is not delivering on issues of insecurity. Yes, this is an issue that has been going on for so long. We know the antecedent around it. We know the issues around Libya and the burst of terrorists into the Sahel. Now there are reports as well that there are some coming from Sudan. However, having said that, Nigerians are still saying, well, besides this issue with Donald Trump bringing it to the front burner, the conversation has been focused around 2027 elections more than it has been on insecurity. And so that's why there's a lot of disgruntlement. And that's why, yes, as much as it's a positive step to see this communique, to see these press statements, it's unfortunate that it comes at a time of crisis that has been brought about by an international leader shining the spotlight on this issue. Now, when you think of social contracts, I always go back to my political philosophy. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote a book in 1762 called The Social Contract, and he broke it down. He broke down how the government always needs to do its part to ensure that its citizens are taken care of so that the government can have legitimate authority. Why do I bring up issues of legitimate authority? Because it is that legitimate authority that a government stands on to be able to call itself a sovereign nation. Without the legitimacy that is brought about by citizens doing their part and the government doing its part in what comes together as a social contract, then you have a legal sovereignty as a nation, but you don't have a moral and a political one, which is why you will have Nigerians saying, well, let the Americans come because we are not finding solutions locally. We are talking about sovereignty, but they are telling you, what is sovereignty doing for us? This is a broken social contract. Now, on another angle is sharing the data, countering information, countering misinformation, and so forth. As much as it is a step in the right direction, we also have to draw parallels with the situation between the United States and South Africa, where the South African government was adamant. They brought evidence, they brought data to counter allegations, false allegations from the United States about a white genocide. So I say the situations rhyme because they are very intricate details which are actually different. Because in this case, there is a true case of killings, persecution of Christians in some areas. However, the South African government went and they shared data and they shared their research. They even took some of Donald Trump's own white South African friends, people he plays golf with, people he has done business with, billionaires who've done business with him in New York and so forth. But guess what? The bill, which is called the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025, has already scaled its reading with the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee. It's going to the House for a vote, after which it will go to the Senate. Then the President president will assent to it. What I'm trying to say is that, unfortunately, the sharing of data, countering misinformation may not work, as we saw in the example of South Africa. What also breaks my heart is that when South Africa was faced with these false allegations of white genocide, Africa kept quiet. Now, unfortunately, it's spreading to other African countries. Our fellow African brothers and sisters are also keeping quiet. Is it the fear of Donald Trump? I don't know, but I think we all should have stood with South Africa in their time. As I close, I think what is important for us is to begin to rebuild the social contract, deliver security to people, deliver welfare to people, deliver a conducive environment for self-actualization. And if a government is able to do that, trust me, it is Nigerians themselves who will be the first to say, Donald Trump, please keep your America, we'll keep our Nigeria. But until that contract is fulfilled, unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves. And just in summary on the Eurobond oversubscription, fantastic news, great to see investor confidence. However, we need FDI. And to do that, we need our industrial policy in place. They say it has been concluded, but we're waiting for our industrial policy to be presented and to be ratified.
Excellent. All right. Rufai, your take on this story.
So mind you, Eurobond is a loan. Let's not forget that. So for the fact that it's oversubscribed, it's a loan. It's a bond. You have to pay back at another date. That's 2.3 or over 10 billion oversubscribed, plus the 1.15 trillion we collected yesterday. Don't let us put a fancy word on it. Don't let us spin and say, oh, because, our bond level was degraded by 0.6% the other day because of the Trump announcement and all of that. Now it shows we are bullish on the bond market. It's still a loan. Underline. Okay. This morning, I was woken up with a message. Somebody sent me a message, and I'll see if I can read it on the air, if I get the chance to read it on the air, so that a lot of Nigerians see what I go through sometimes, and why I scream and why I shout. Excellente. Rufai, they have kidnapped a vicar of one of the Anglican churches, Venerable Achia and his wife, and a young girl. They're asking for a ransom of 600 million naira. Evil people. And there's a poster. Diocese of Kaduna, Venerable Edwin Achia and his wife, Mrs. Sarah Achia, were kidnapped in the early hours of 28th of October. In fact, this is a prayer alert they sent. You see, I want Nigeria to work. I'm a patriot to the core. I don't believe in all the narrative and propaganda by the Americans, by the Chinese, by all these people. Yesterday, I talked about the greatness of this country when we put out 15 billion to fight, to liberate our ECOWAS countries. Nigeria fought 6 different rebel groups across Sierra Leone and Liberia. We were ECOMOG. The strength of our military held through, and we got results. The question is, why can't we fight the group that is happening? And I'll tell you some things there. Number one, what this long war has done is it has built a military-industrial complex in Nigeria. And as far as the military-industrial complex is not solved, things will arise to ensure the war continues. The government, if they have the political will, must first stop the military-industrial complex. And it cuts across. There is military-industrial complex everywhere. Secondly, the government must stop the killings. I get messages every single day. But you see what we have done in this argument. We have put propaganda forward. Go and look at it. In all of the government engagement, they're not talking about the people being killed. They're talking about their own narrative. So they talk about people that were neutralized, that were released. I dare the government to release the data of people that have been killed. They will not. And other people that are spinning the narrative are now focused on pitting religions against each other. Please, my dear Christian and Muslim brothers, it's not a fight between Christians and Muslims. We are united and we are one. Do not let them use this thing to distract us again, because I see that's what they want to do. My dear South and North, it's not a fight between the South and North, because we are all being killed anyway. Because that's what I've seen in the recent days. They've spun the propaganda around. Oh, 15,000 neutralized, 15,000 rescued. What about the people killed? All we are saying is stop the killing. Trump lies per second billion. If Trump does like this, lie, anything, lie. Yes, I admit he didn't bring out his facts before he said Christian genocide. But does that stop us from solving the problem of killing in our own country that's been raging for a while? So let's stop the talk here and there and try to point accusing fingers at one another. Can we collectively call on the government to have a political will to solve the problem and bring the perpetrators to book? Is that too much to ask for? Because you see, in all the conversations I've had, it's just been conspiracy theories, pitting Christians against Muslims. It's not a context of which religion are they killing more? Muslims, Christians, Muslims, Christians. That's not the goddamn problem. The problem is Nigerians are dying. Let's not divide ourselves. Our Christian brothers are being killed, our Muslim brothers are being killed, every Nigerian is being killed, Oshokono worshippers are being killed. How can we fix this problem? That's the priority. And the government should please rise to action. I'll tell a quick story. Runnymede in 1215, the barons met the king and they signed something called the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights. It is based on that most constitutions are written. The king will subject our sovereignty to you, but you must do something in return for us. That was pretty much articulated in the likes of John Locke, John Jack Rousseau, and everything. All we are saying is, for us, government, section 14, subsection 2B, is where we stand. That is the mandate we stand. Section 14, subsection 2B, the security of the people is your responsibility, and that's why we're paying taxes. That's why the military is being funded. That's why we're giving you our sovereignty. That's why we respect and we salute the coat of arms and we sing the national anthem. Let us do something about these killings. Nigeria, we hail thee. Our own dear native land, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we will stand. Government, do something.
All right, that's been the call on this table, and for many quarters since this news broke around the best response to Donald Trump's claim and Nigeria being designated as a country of particular concern, being that we fix the problem rather than trying to make it look better. Of course, the job of the government in trying to manage diplomatically is to ensure that they're able to put Nigeria in the best of light, saying that the claims are false, there's no genocide against Christians in Nigeria. They say the president himself is moderate, is married to a woman who is a pastor, and while he was governor in Lagos State, he regularly had engagements with people of different faiths, religious leaders in the state. And in fairness to the president, that is actually the reality on ground. But does this mean that we do not have security challenges or terrorists or people who are burning churches or killing Christians in the North Central, especially in Plateau State, in the rural communities in Plateau State? I reached out to some of the leaders, religious leaders in the state to get a sense of what is really happening there. And the truth is that for a very long time, they have been calling out and speaking out about what is going on in that region. Perhaps if we had paid attention to them, we wouldn't be running helter-skelter now, trying to, put up images, release facts and figures, and deny the claims by the U.S. government, if only we had faced the issues head-on at the time. This then brings up some of the conversations that have happened even before now. Number one is the fact that recall that a former governor of a state in the Northwest had said that the government's policy was to pay bandits and to give them incentives in order for them to stop killing people in the country, and that was not a good model or directive or policy to follow, even though the Office of the National Security Advisor came out to debunk that story. But it then brings an opportunity for us to discuss what is the strategy of this government to address the incessant terrorism, acts of banditry, kidnapping in the country. Unfortunately, so far it hasn't worked. In fact, what has happened is that some of these bandits have become even more emboldened, such once that they are able to carry out their nefarious activities and record them, they're able to engage with community leaders, hold their own kinds of press conference with nothing being done. Instead, it almost seems as if there's appeasement, we grant amnesties, we are handling with kids' gloves. It's high time the government showed seriousness to this by actually putting their own boots on the ground in their own nation and actually getting the problem solved. In the era of diplomatic dialogue, I've heard on good authority that presidents or heads of state have waded in, maybe not from the African continent, and Vimba, you're absolutely spot on. And I think more than just before us not working together in unity is the fact that nobody wants America's attention on them right now. They just want to be in the good books of America, and that even opens up a different conversation around Pan-Africanism, around Africa getting itself together so that we can begin to have a voice when it comes to global discourse, that we can begin to have a voice as a continent and not defer to the West all the time. Every time a country has a problem with the Western nation, it becomes a bit isolated, everyone looks away. But then we talk tough when it's amongst ourselves. So it's high time we actually started to, speak on behalf of one another. I don't think South Africa has said anything yet, since this has happened. I'm talking about the powerhouses on the African continent. I don't think Egypt has said anything, at the moment.
ECOWAS has said something.
ECOWAS has said something. Okay, well, Nigeria is part of ECOWAS, so it's still a region bloc, but it's still something. But in terms of standing together, may there be a time when the African continent can speak with one voice against the Western superpower? Until we get to that point, we'll continue to go cap in hand. But on good authority, I have it that there are conversations going on behind the scenes. The president of Nigeria, the president of the United States of America, and an independent nation that's Western and has huge influence and good diplomatic relationships with the United States of America. And that is why you would see in the coming days, the tone will temper down and we'll begin to see the Nigerian government come out to speak about efforts they are making in ensuring that they are able to maintain the security of lives and property. So that's a good move in that regard. But I think beyond diplomatic conversations, or in addition to diplomatic conversations, would be the Nigerian life. What happens to the Nigerian people? May we use this as a good opportunity to finally fix the challenges that both Christians and Muslims are facing, and in particular the Christians who have come out to speak up. The real truth is that whether you talk about Bokos, Mango, local government area, they talk about this, back in Ladi, we report issues of Christians, churches being burnt, and it is high time that something is done about it. No one deserves to die for their faith. According to the Constitution as guaranteed, it is important that we're able to uphold religious freedom, and it should not just be a talk shop or the fact that I'm married to a pastor. That should be the conversation around that. It should be what is the reality of Christians and Muslims living in Nigeria, and ensuring that they are able to exercise and follow their faith without any fear of an attack. I think that is the most important thing for us as Nigerians. It's not enough to just keep to present a good front on the international scene, but actually to fix the problem. That is the best response, and I continue to maintain that. Now, going on to the PDP and the crisis in the PDP. Today we're going to have someone, we've been having conversations around this all through the week, but I think the big question, as was posed yesterday, I believe, to the chairman of the PDP in Abia State, is that who are the people working against the PDP to ensure that at all costs the convention will not hold? This is another reconciliation committee, and from the looks of it already, it doesn't look like some of the people, members of the party who have been working against the party, are ready for any kind of reconciliation. What they want is a destabilization of the party and that the convention does not hold. We must call a spade a spade. And so it is high time for the PDP as a party to, using the word that's in the news at the moment, put their own boots on the ground, even though it doesn't fit in, but also be very firm and take on the disciplinary action meted on these actors who are working on behalf of the opposition to destabilize the party. That is the truth. And the reason why they are doubling down on their efforts to ensure that the convention doesn't hold is that once the convention happens, things will begin to change. And those who have worked against the PDP for so long will then see them get the boots out of the party. Oftentimes you'll ask the question around, why is the principal actor in this matter has not been called to order? Why has he not been expelled from the party? And the conversation is that he sits on the National Executive Committee, the highest making body in the party, and it is not as straightforward as that to kick him out of the party. But with due process following the convention, finally the PDP might be able to get a semblance of sense or semblance of working at least towards to have a party and not disintegrate entirely. And so you begin to understand that when it comes to those who are working effort effortlessly to ensure that the PDP does not stand, who are they working for? What is the motive for it? It must be clamped down, because if we're going to have a thriving democracy, the opposition must have a strong voice. We cannot have a nation where there's no dissenting voice to the power of the day, and all the opposition parties are in crisis in one way or the other, where seeds have been sown to ensure that the parties are stabilized. And that's why we as Nigerians must speak up at this point. The PDP to get its acts together and to ensure that they're able to rise up as a voice of opposition in this democracy alongside the other parties, whether it be the Labour Party, ADC, SDP. We need a vibrant democracy, and for that to happen, we must have voices of opposition that are strong, so that we do not descend into a one-party state. And those are some of the things before us this morning. But like we mentioned, hopefully we are able to deepen the conversation with our guests, later on today's show. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Adefemi Akinsanya join us for World Brief and to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us.
Acceptable, contemporary, and get over.
Good morning. Good morning. That's me. Good morning. Good morning, Adefemi. How are you? So demure. Thank you for trying. I'm in wonderful company as always, isn't it? Wonderful examples you are all setting. Good morning to you all, and good morning to the viewers. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, US President Donald Trump has once again declared that Christians in Nigeria and indeed around the world are facing an existential threat and has vowed to save them. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Humanity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands and thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I am hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern. That's a legal definition. When the Christians or any such group is slaughtered, like is happening in Nigeria, 3,100 versus 4,476 worldwide. What horrible numbers. Something has to be done. I am asking Congressman Riley Moore, together with Chairman Tom Cole and the House Appropriations Committee, to immediately look into this matter and to report back to me. And I mean, like, immediately. The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. It's not only Nigeria, it's all over. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. This is not going to happen. The killing of Christians is not going to happen.
Well, as we've just heard in that new video released and shared by the White House media team, Trump has vowed to defend persecuted Christians here in Nigeria and around the world. While his comments have been welcomed by Christians home and abroad, they've also drawn criticism from rights groups who accuse him of using religion to sow fear and influence voters ahead of midterm elections in November 2026. Something to bear in mind. But let's head over now to Mexico, where President Claudia Sheinbaum has vowed to press charges after she was groped by a man during a public event. Now, the incident, which was caught on camera, shows a man kiss Sheinbaum's neck before grabbing her chest area from behind. Now, his actions have sparked outrage across the country and indeed the world. Now, the president herself, known for her firm stance on women's rights, said that the act was not just a personal violation, but an example of the daily harassment women face in Mexico. Authorities say the suspect has been identified, arrested, and an investigation is underway. Now, let's go over to South Africa. The High Court in Johannesburg has ordered an anti-migrant group to stop blocking foreign nationals from accessing public health facilities and schools, calling such actions illegal. Now, Operation Dudula has been picketing hospitals and clinics in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal provinces, checking identity cards and stopping anyone who is not South African from entering. This harassment has also been extended to schools. Now, migrants represent some 4% of South Africa's population. That's around 2.4 million people, most of them from Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. Now, xenophobia does remain an issue in South Africa, which has been accompanied by occasional outbursts of deadly violence, and anti-migrant sentiment has continued to become a key political talking point. Well, before I come over to my wonderful colleagues for their thoughts, let's take a look at our newspaper headlines from Nigeria and indeed the world. Firstly, let's begin with the front page of This Day. Now,
this day does report that the federal government has dismissed U.S. President Donald Trump's claim of a Christian genocide here in Nigeria, insisting that it is based on faulty data. Now, ministers Mohammed Idris and Yusuf Tugar have maintained that insecurity affects both Christians and Muslims, while Festus Keyamo described President Tinubu as a moderate Muslim himself, committed to religious tolerance. Now, if we step away from ministers and the federal government, now, human rights lawyer Femi Falana, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria, had faulted Trump's claim also. He says that the killings are driven by criminality rather than religion. Meanwhile, the Campaign for Democracy warned that Sheikh Ahmed Gumi's recent comments could strain Nigeria-US relations further. A lot to discuss there. Let's take a look at the New Telegraph this morning. And the New Telegraph does lead with the federal government's claim that foreign lobbyists are responsible for fueling these claims. That's what the federal government has to say. Still on this message about targeting killings and accusations of Christian persecution in Nigeria. Again, the Information Minister, Mohammed Idris, has dismissed these claims, calling it misleading and saying that insecurity affects all Nigerians. We have Minister Dele Alake, who is the Minister of Solid Minerals. He accused opposition figures of fueling this crisis in order to discredit the Tinubu administration. That is the lead story on the New Telegraph. Moving over to the Punch, and we widen out the conversation. Just this story here caught our eye. We've got Wole Soyinka saying that he himself predicted that there would be a mass revocation of US visas and green card. That's following the withdrawal of his own visa by the US government. Now, in an interview he did with BBC Pidgin, he talks about how he foresaw these actions under President Donald Trump's comments and his presidency, especially the second term. He described it as petty-minded, and described him rather as a petty-minded dictator. Very strong words. Now, the US mission here in Nigeria has clarified that visas are a privilege, not a right, and may be revoked at any time. Now, Soyinka, who vowed never to reapply, said that he left the United States voluntarily rather than being kicked out. Still on the front page of the Punch, the headline is talking about the politics of what we're seeing happening within the PDP. They're calling it a power showdown. Wike Block is defiant as PDP Board of Trustees insists on a convention. That is what we're seeing here, and this is despite, of course, the directive for it to proceed. The PDP's secretariat remains sealed. Both factions continue to lay claim to the party's leadership. A whole lot of hullabaloo going on there. Let's move over to the Daily Independent. Now, the Daily Independent reports that Nigeria lost $300 billion to crude oil theft by the Senate. It's a story that we took across different papers yesterday, but of course it's still gathering steam. Plans about phasing out petrol cars and considering electric vehicle bill is something that's also being discussed within the upper echelons of our legal system. So we'll have to see what goes on there. But again, this investigation was led by Senator Ned Nwoko, and the committee did blame poor regulation and weak monitoring and called for tighter enforcement and new security technology to combat crude oil theft. Moving on to The Guardian this morning, The Guardian does call for a referendum in Nigeria's constitution. Now, calls for such a referendum are definitely gaining momentum, and that's as legal experts, civil society groups, and regional bodies are demanding more people-driven charters. Now, senior lawyers describe the absence of a referendum clause as a major flaw, while groups like Afenifere, Pandef, and Horuwa are faulting lawmakers for blocking its own inclusion. To the Daily Trust this morning, and the Daily Trust does look at indigenous contractors continuing their protests for their pay. They are saying that the National Assembly and indeed those levels of government and governance have been paying foreign contractors while neglecting their own bills. So they vow to continue their protests. These protests have continued now for a second day, and they say that they will continue coming out to protest until they get paid. Let's move over to our next paper this morning and take a look at the front page of Kenya's Daily Nation. Senior school fees shocker for parents. So what we're seeing here is the government has scrapped free senior school tuition and it has cut funding per student by half. Now, for the first time since 2015, day school and boarding school learners will have to pay higher fees annually. This is a move expected, of course, to strain parents under this new education guideline. The paper also reports that the government has reached a deal to end the 49-day university lecturers strike agreed agreeing to pay 7.6 billion shillings in arrears and to reinstate all dismissed staff. And before we come over to my wonderful colleagues, let's take a look at some British papers this morning. I'll stay in the middle. We've got the Mirror and the Daily Express, and they are both leading with this growing prison crisis happening in the United Kingdom. So the Daily Mirror, for example, its headline is saying essentially not again. We see it along the bottom here, and it does report that 2 or more prisoners had been mistakenly released again. This is sparking outrage and prompting criticism from Labour's Deputy Prime Minister, of course, David Lammy, who described the justice system as failing. Similarly, the Daily Express also leads with this story, this shocking release of an Algerian sex attack convict, highlighting how a convict migrant was wrongfully freed despite earlier promises of tighter security checks. Now, both papers say that the blunder has triggered a nationwide manhunt and renewed pressure on the government to act. So those are your well-briefed stories, and those are your newspaper headlines from across the world. Love to hear your thoughts.
Isn't it shocking that we are still talking about the massive corruption of the Conservative government with COVID-19 in the UK?
Okay. There's that too.
A company owned by some of those. You know, in the UK too, the corruption is just so annoying. Boris Johnson pretty much gave his friends and donors free PPE contracts here and there. A lot of them didn't even bring PPE. It's a monumental scale corruption. And you can see some of the companies, they couldn't even pay their taxes when they folded up. 39 million, 40 million pounds owing the government in taxes because of the corruption by Boris Johnson. Let me quickly go to Trump talking again. See, we have said this thing. My point is clear on it. We don't need Trump to come and tell us what we already know. As I was speaking on the air, somebody sent me another article of the person is a rice farmer. He wrote that article way back 2019. The article was written way back 2019 of all these problems that we're having today, the killings, but government never solved it. So it's a carry on, and we should be careful. What we're just saying is end the killings. That's just it. I'm happy Claudia Schweiborn is taking that case up with that man.
Absolutely.
No, you cannot do and grope a woman, let alone a president. You can see that's the kind of nonsensical mindset some men have. You see a woman and all the thing you think of is sex, groping. No, you can't even see a woman as a precious material put there by God. You can't see a woman as a co-equal and accountable for success and development. So it's a mindset thing. And that's why you see some men in India, they go out, they rape women and some other parts of the world. So I'm very happy she should take up charges. This is going to be the first of its kind. They should not beg her. The man must go to jail. The man that did that must go to jail. That's just it.
Yeah.
We can't live in an insane society. I yield the floor.
I think the man was very intentional. You know, Mexico is a country that has ingrained is it machismo?
Yes.
And ingrained chauvinism, whereby women are seen to be, they have the right to accost a woman, to touch a woman without permission because you're a man and is a woman. And it's there. In fact, femicide is a big issue in Mexico, whereby 98% of murders motivated by, against women have been unsolved. There's no consequence for that. And so it was a big statement to say that you're a woman, I can just hit you here and there. How many men have been groped in public like that? And I think that is addressing the core issue. The fact that she's the first female president of Mexico is a big statement on its own that women have now gotten a place on the table in Mexico. But beyond that is even to challenge the mindsets of men themselves to see that it's not okay. You cannot speak, talk, or hit a woman anyhow because you feel that, I have your type at home, as you often say, as we say. And I'm glad that she's pressing charges, and you can begin to see when a woman is in power, if the president can be handled in this manner, you can imagine what other women in Mexico are facing. And we see it in other parts of the world. It's not just Mexico. So I'm hoping that they will make an example of this man and that we'll begin to take things very seriously. Now, beyond that, let me go to the Nigerian situation, and I want to just appeal again to different government functionaries, agencies, leaders, to have a coordinated communication approach. Enough of granting interviews where you're stoking the fire even more, because once you begin to speak out of turn and point fingers and say it's the media, it's opposition, or you politicize it, you're making the matter worse rather than trying to find a solution. We should be solution-driven right now. What can we do to get ourselves out of this mess? And even most importantly, what can we do to secure the lives of Nigerians who have been crying out for many years Indeed, this administration inherited the problem. It didn't start under the Tinubu administration, but it was not contained under this administration. And successive governments or previous governments have come up on the campaign of we're going to fix insecurity. That is how Buhari got into power. He was saying that he had said that Jonathan administration did not handle Boko Haram adequately, and he was coming as a former general. Nigerians expected that he was going to come in and decimate the terrorists. It didn't happen in 8 years. In fact, if anything, they got more emboldened, more brazen, and you'd even see them making videos of their atrocities. And so what the Tinubu government should do now is, rather than trying to save face and point blames, let the Minister of Information, who has spoken quite well in that press conference, continue to lead the conversations, and let every other person keep quiet and continue to push religious tolerance, religious harmony, push the fact that in Nigeria, protected by law, guaranteed by the Constitution, religious freedom, and demonstrate very clearly to Nigerians first, and then the international world, what the government is doing to promote religious freedom and to promote the lives and properties of both Christians, Muslims, and every other Nigerian, living here. I think that's the most important and powerful message we should be seeing here. No more rhetorics, enough politicizing of lives and properties and insecurity in Nigeria. Let's get to work and let Nigerians see the evidence of that work.
Absolutely. Very well said. I mean, I sincerely can't say it any better than that. When I think of the issues, for me, it keeps sending me back to the 19th century. In fact, I had to watch a documentary the other day when Usman Danfodio moved into northern Nigeria. And you look at that situation 200 years later and how that has influenced some movements and how that has influenced some of the things we see today. And we ask, well, how have we made an attempt to balance this with regards to the fact that the world has evolved drastically since then? So I think our inaction in countering, or rather in creating a balanced environment, an environment of coexistence, we've evolved as people since 200 years ago. So I always, go back to that example of Usman Danfodio and how that jihad came into northern Nigeria. But, since then we've evolved as a people. However, we can't allow economic situations, geopolitical tensions to cause situations where people now hijack some of these religions and turn to extremism and turn it to criminality. Now, on Donald Trump, he had a very busy day yesterday, a very busy 24 hours, because he also gave his anniversary speech, because yesterday marked 1 year, I believe, since his election. He also took a swipe at South Africa. He made it official that he won't be attending the G20 in South Africa, went as far as saying that, in fact, South Africa doesn't deserve to be part of the Gs. So he's also started a campaign where he's trying to remove South Africa from the G20. I'm bringing this up because it goes back to our issues around social contract again. In South Africa, issues of xenophobia, Operation Dudula. You won't have a group like Operation Dudula who go around harassing foreign nationals. Mind you, they don't harass Caucasians. They harass African foreign nationals and block them from accessing healthcare and so forth. And this is because they feel their government is failing them. So everything goes back to social contract. Are our African governments meeting the needs of the people? Now, there's a lot of dispute around the legality or illegality of illegal immigrants being granted access to free health care. So some countries allow it, some countries don't. Generally, they say it's allowed for emergency cases. But that's really the crux of the matter here, is that Operation Dudula is saying these people are illegals and they shouldn't become oppressive to our healthcare system, because now we as South Africans are not even able to access the healthcare because our system is overwhelmed. It's all about, a failure of social contract. African leaders, African governments, we just need to do better. Absolutely. We need to do better. Donald Trump still doesn't have a right, to get involved in our affairs without invitation. However, we must do better.
Yes. So responsibility to go around. Can now have the audacity and impetus to put their business where it's not, especially when we feel ourselves. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Always great to have you on the show. Now let's go live to Washington, D.C. with Anyeze Osakwe, who will bring us updates on reactions to Trump's denunciation of the killing of Christians in Nigeria and threats of action again. Good morning, Anyeze.
Good morning. Good morning.
Excellent. So, Anise, we now have another formal video statement from President Trump where he denounces the killing of Christians in Nigeria and threatens action again. How should we read this latest video from Trump as his administration concurrently deals with its own challenges in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Kind of like the way you have all been discussing it this morning, this is such a significant escalation. I think that we've really seen how quickly this has escalated. It was Saturday that President Trump first put out that first post on Truth Social. By Sunday, he was talking on Air Force One saying that, he might be considering airstrikes. He might be considering boots on the ground in Nigeria. This is now Thursday morning, and we have this, what looks like a pre-recorded video statement, probably filmed inside the White House, where he basically laid down 3 key points. The first being that, yes, he has officially declared Nigeria as a country of particular concern. The second being that he said they are, quote, ready, willing, and able to move forward. These are really strong words that he's using. And lastly, he essentially appointed 2 senior government officials, the names are Tom Cole and Riley Moore, to move forward with this entire endeavor. So I think the key point that we really need to take away right now is the fact that the President Trump, his administration, has a strong sense of urgency on this entire matter. And I want to juxtapose it with what's going on here in the U.S. because as I've been here for the last few days, it's a really interesting time. First of all, we had those major elections where the Democrats essentially sweeped, all of the key states, New York, New Jersey, Virginia. And then you also have this government shutdown. Of course, it's historic, but it's starting to have real impact on people's lives. Later today, the Trump administration is going to essentially say that a number of the biggest airports across the country are going to cut air traffic by 10% because they literally have not paid the scope of air travel is too much for air traffic controllers, and they haven't been paid since October because of this shutdown. And I'm saying all of this to say that America itself is dealing with real issues, but the fact that President Trump is still willing and able to put out these kinds of videos, these kinds of statements, it shows the sense of urgency that he seems to have towards this issue, even though Americans here on the ground are dealing with issues of their own.
So is there a sense that the diplomatic wheels are turning and that this potential military action by Trump, as suggested, can be averted in any way? And are you getting any feelers? How's the Nigerian government responding to this? Do we have our people? Do we have boots on the ground in America? I'm talking about negotiation boots on the ground, lobbies, boots on the ground, because at this point in time, definitely there are some Republican lobbies that definitely will work with Trump, which, people can engage, a government can engage at this point in time. Or is it when our ambassadors come in, we're going to get our boots on the ground into the Capitol and start talking to people?
It seems like that is what should be happening. I know that you all briefly talked about that speech from the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, yesterday. He said, and I quote, President Tinubu is taking the lead in addressing all areas of misunderstanding through diplomatic and political channels. Now, the Minister of Information wasn't specific about what political channels or what governments the administration is interfacing with, whether it's the American or any others. But there's still this sense that diplomacy as usual is not really the name of the game anymore. We've seen in the last few days that President Trump is big on Twitter. He's big on Truth Social, as well as, Senators Ted Cruz. They're posting videos. They're, retweeting one another, replying to one another's tweets. This is not the diplomacy that, closed-door meetings, people kind of speaking behind closed doors and just interfacing on a one-to-one personal basis. This is the age of social media, and I think that, we also saw that one tweet from the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, where he wrote this open letter to President Trump. But aside from these statements that we've seen here and there kind of flying in a very public sphere, there isn't a sense that diplomacy as we know it is really taking place in this situation. And I think that given the sense of urgency and fire that the Trump administration is coming with, the Nigerian government needs to find a a way to put forward an intentional and nuanced plan about how they plan to address a lot of these allegations that America is coming forward with.
I can give you an idea quickly, Anieze. How about Nigerian government engaging top MAGA podcasters, engaging top right-wing media outlets, engaging Fox, buying ads on Hannity's show, engaging the likes of Tucker, engaging the likes of other top MAGA podcasters, because these are the people Trump listens to.
Absolutely. I know that Mohammed Idris was briefly on CNN. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I know that Mohammed Idris was briefly on CNN.
That's not the platform. It doesn't watch.
Exactly. So, there's still this sense that there isn't this direct communication between the Nigerian government and the American government as well. And I think that that's a really key point, because there was some reporting that said that what essentially set off all of this, what essentially set off President Trump putting that initial tweet or that initial post on Truth Social was a Fox report. And Senator Ted Cruz has been at the forefront of all of this, and he does a lot of interviews with Fox. He did one just yesterday as well. So I think that that's a really key point. Engaging the media, the American media, would be a really interesting tactic to potentially communicate with the Trump administration as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, meanwhile, while we're talking about engagement, Republican U.S. Senator Ted Cruz had said that he plans to be explicit about which Nigerian officials he plans to hold accountable for being complicit in this alleged Christian genocide. The list is not out yet, but what more are you learning about who might be on it? Are there any murmurings in D.C. about who we can expect to be named and shamed, so to speak?
Yeah, so to Rufai's point, Senator Ted Cruz did an interview with Fox News just yesterday, and he essentially called out 12 northern states as the potentials of who we might see on that list. I mean, I won't list them all out, but they're essentially the states that engage with the Sharia law, so Zamfara, Kano, Katsina, Bauchi, and more. And Cruz seems to be hinting that a lot of the government officials that he intends to name and shame, as he said, in the coming days and weeks, will likely be from those particular states. And he said that it's because, in his words, these particular government officials are complicit in the mass murder of Christians, and the plan is to sanction these officials. Now, it's still not clear what exact sanctions they plan to enact. But, as the U.S. has done before, it could be visa bans, it could be asset freezes, it could be seizing properties. It's definitely, we're kind of in a waiting game as of now, but, we'll see how this all plays out, especially because he said he would call these officials out by name. So this is a story and a thread we will absolutely keep following.
All right, thank you so much, Anieze. I think in terms of diplomacy as well, have it on good authority that another head of state is also helping that conversation from a Western country as well, that Nigeria has a good diplomatic relationship with, speaking to Trump on behalf of the Nigerian president. And that's also a way to go, in addition to, like you talked about and Faz mentioned, using, leveraging Western media. Thank you. We look forward to more conversations with you throughout the day here on Arise News, and of course tomorrow as well, just giving us updates from Washington, D.C. Thank you. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we shall be talking to Senator Umar Tari, former PDP National Secretary. Stay with us.
One gathering.
So if we said there is no reconciliation, of course.
How much was the contractor paid, and why do we have...
I've actually bought off. They procure arms.
What is your... Report and protect democracy.
Getting started is easy. Step 3, tap directly to our monitoring.
Democracy where no voice and friends of the night.
All you need to ask yourself is that, where is everybody? Anybody, and
what makes you stand out is different.
Ready? Aftermath. Join.
I must say it's quite dicey, but I will not answer that question yet, because At the end of my presentation today, I've got something that mirrors what is just happening. So for the brevity of time, let me just go straight into it. But before we get into the conversation about stadiums and about Erling Haaland,
what's trending in the United States, where President Donald Trump has doubled down on his claims of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. Well, in a new video released by the White House media team on Wednesday, Trump reiterated his stance that Christianity is facing an existential threat and vowed to defend Christians in Nigeria. Let's take a look.
He is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands and thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I am hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern. That's a legal definition. When the Christians or any such group is slaughtered, like is happening in Nigeria, 3,100 versus 4,476 worldwide. What horrible numbers. Something has to be done. I am asking Congressman Riley Moore, together with Chairman Tom Cole and the House Appropriations Committee, to immediately look into this matter and to report back to me. And I mean, like, immediately. The United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. It's not only Nigeria, it's all over. We stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. This is not going to happen. The killing of Christians is not going to happen.
Well, this latest statement by Trump suggests that his administration remains unconvinced by Nigerian rebuttals and may proceed with threatened sanctions or even military actions. Well, Ted Cruz has been talking, and I'll read his post on X yesterday. He read, it reads, Joe Biden turned a blind eye while radical Islamic terrorists slaughtered Christians in Nigeria. I am very grateful to President Trump for designating it a country of particular concern. Now, we should take the next step and hold Nigerian officials accountable. I intend to be very explicit about who they are in the coming days and weeks. Meanwhile, the federal government of Nigeria, during a press conference in Abuja on Wednesday, accused foreign lobbyists of fueling the narrative of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, stated that government findings point to a network of external actors, particularly in the United States, deliberately promoting divisive and misleading portrayals of Nigeria's security challenges. Idris emphasized that while the administration recognizes insecurity has affected many communities, there is no evidence supporting claims of systematic targeting of any religious groups. Let's take a look.
We can say that, for example, Nigerian government has been able to have a correlation between some of these lobbies operating especially in the United States of America and the activities here. We have seen, and it's a matter of public record. If you go to the records of the United States, there is what is called the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It is clear there. You have seen that some of the influencers of these criminal activities have direct relationship with lobbyists in the US who have direct relationship with some of the people who are shouting about this issue outside this country.
Well, guys, this federal government's allegation of foreign lobbying adds, another dimension to the genocide debate. He's suggesting that, external interests may be manipulating Nigeria's internal security narrative for undisclosed purposes. In the same vein, Senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, accused Donald Trump of lying to the world over allegations of Christian genocide in Nigeria while speaking on live television. The human rights lawyer strongly rejected Trump's claims, stating that Trump lied without any evidence to back it up. Let's take a look.
Now, I'm going to look at the problems from the human rights perspective, not a diplomat. And my own position is that Mr. Trump has lied to the whole world by alleging Christian genocide in Nigeria. So it's a lie without any evidence to back it up. Now, he said about 3,100 people have been killed, Christians have been killed in Nigeria. It's unfortunate and nobody can support even the killing of a citizen of this country.
Falana now joins other prominent figures to reject the genocide narrative. Before I come to you, I'll take this. Well, on February 14th, 2024, Bishop Wilfred Chikwa Anaigbe of the Catholic Diocese of Makurdi made serious allegations before the United States Congress alleging systematic killings of Christians farming communities in Benue State, claiming that over 1,000 Christians had been killed, over 160 churches destroyed, and large swaths of land seized in the past decade. The bishop also testified on March 12, 2025, before the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa, accompanied by Reverend Father Remigius Iluha. Let's take a look.
Constitutionally, we are a secularist country, but our unity has been fragile. Political and religious actions and even public speech have been carefully managed to avoid accusations of religious bias. A long-term Islamic agenda to homogenize the population has been implemented over several presidencies through a strategy to reduce and eventually eliminate the Christian identity of half of the population. The quest to Islamalize the land appears high on the agenda of some of the powerful and influential Muslims in Nigeria.